Happy Thursday, people.
Happy Thursday.
Hey,
Is that what day it
everybody.
is?
Well, I observe that we have a quorum. That's cool. Waiting for the clock to tick over to get started. All right, it is 5:30, everyone. I call this meeting of the Planning Commission to order. To try not to accidentally say Transportation Advisory Committee at any point, because that happens sometimes. The meeting was yesterday, so wires are a little crossed there. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda this evening? I've not got any. All right. I hope everyone's had a chance to look at our minutes from our last two meetings. If there are any corrections or changes that we need to make, go ahead and let me know.
I had
Let
actually
us know.
noted I'm sorry, I just noted a couple minor things. I think for the first one.
Did I not make the changes that you asked for last time?
I'm not sure. I don't think I asked you to make any changes. I think I just
Okay, I thought you-
sort of said
yeah.
it was available. There's a couple, just nothing major, nothing that changes the content. I just noticed I had some weird punctuation at the end with the little two headers. And then both roundtable and adjourn have item 8, so I'll just fix that to 8 and 9. So nothing major, but that's all I had. But I'll correct those and resubmit them.
Sounds good. Well, all right. Your motion to go ahead, David.
Yes, I would move approval of the 2 meeting minutes.
The motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Oh,
All right, we'll take Becky on that one. All right, we have a motion and a second. Since we've already had an opportunity to make the changes, I'll move to doing a roll call vote on that. David? Joe?
Aye.
Amanda?
aye.
Becky?
Aye.
Rosemary?
Aye.
And Raylene?
Aye.
All right, thanks. Our minutes are approved. Next up on our agenda is any public comment. It would appear that we do not have public this evening, if I can see everyone who's currently in council chambers. All right. On to new business. Our first item of new business, 5.1, is to set our meeting schedule going forward. I mentioned in the round table during our site visits that this was something that Janet and I had talked about. I think that I had said at that point that we would look to do the fourth Thursday, but upon reflecting on that, I recall that our fourth Thursdays tend to run into holidays in November and December, and so it might behoove us to meet on second Tuesdays.
But Thursdays.
Did I say Tuesday? I meant Thursdays. Yeah. Sorry about that, everyone. Yeah, Tuesdays are not a good idea. We should not do that.
2 conflicts.
Yeah, exactly.
Second Thursday is good for me.
All right.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I have a conflict on the 13th of October.
So that's the next one coming up,
That would be the
Um,
next one coming up.
but not a deal breaker in general, or
No,
yeah, and the idea here is not just to have fewer meetings, but to try to reduce the prep time that Janet has to do for meeting related stuff, instead to try to shift that toward production related things. So we got this grant application we're gonna focus on a bit later. Yeah, so I think if this seems generally amenable, look for a motion to change our meeting schedule to merely the second Thursday of the month instead of the second and fourth.
So moved.
All right, that was Amanda, I think, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Having a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Joe seconded. Is there any further discussion of this motion? All right, not having any, I will call the roll. David?
aye.
That's affirmative, yeah. Joe?
Aye.
Amanda?
Aye.
Becky? It looked like an aye, yeah. All right.
Yep, aye.
All right, Rosemary
Aye.
and Raylene.
Aye.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Next up on that passes. Also, I guess I should say that. Next up on our agenda is item 2 under new business. So reviewing what seemed like the consensus was for doing our revising some of our zoning based on our site visits. And as you can see in our packet, and that's starting on page 8 of the packet, we did a really rough illustration. When I say we, that means me with like a sketching app of the basic areas that we talked about potentially changing the zoning districts. You'll note on page 9, which is to say the Brooklyn Street area, it says MU1/UC2 instead of UC3. That's because of a mistake that I made before. And looking back at the use tables, I realized that our UC3 it's designed for like auto-oriented commercial areas. So like the areas that we have UC3 are like say like North Main Street outside of downtown. And I realized that was the wrong thing to compare to. So, but other than that, I think this is roughly the stuff that we had sort of gathered around while we were walking and talking. So I'm welcome to anyone saying, "Oh no, this is not what we not what we were thinking." It's just based on my notes. What else? I think that that's all I was going to say about it initially. We since I mentioned that there was a change in the district, probably look at those in more detail. Janet has included the narrative of our zoning districts in this packet as well, in addition to some of the dimensional and use tables. And that can help us get a sense of what the intention of the districts are as well.
Michael, can I just ask a clarifying question about what you said?
Absolutely.
So on the first map, the Brooklyn Street neighborhood, the UC2 should read UC3. Is that what you're?
When we were in our last packet, I provided comparisons on UC3,
Mhm.
but I realized that UC3 was not the right district for that.
Okay.
Partly, yeah, and Mostly
Oh, I
because of the,
see. Okay.
yeah, the uses and the intent of it. UC3 is supposed to be more like a store that's set back from the street that you drive into, kind of. So yeah, so think of like, the restaurant with a parking lot kind of deal.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think it's not in the place that we're talking about, it's just not the right form. I thought that it was like the third level down of the like downtown density, but it turns out it is kind of, I'm not even sure it should, yeah, it seems like it's not even in the same category. So maybe that's a like mislabeled zoning thing. But anyway, I made a mistake.
Got it.
What we
Okay.
talked about last time.
Okay.
Last time.
So the
yeah.
UC2
this-
is what you're recommending, or
Yeah.
like opening our conversation with.
Yeah, it seems like either the mixed use one or the UC2 are kind of similar. Let me see what I wrote down over here. From my own notes. Yeah, it seems so. UC2 allows slightly more density and a higher structure height than UC3, and MU1 is is very similar to UC3, except it actually has a slightly lower structure height. So I don't know. Maybe Janet could probably jump in on some of the stuff too. Sorry, go ahead.
You are spot on, Michael.
Okay, well, that's what I wrote down from before. Yeah.
Right?
And so what I was thinking is it kind of feels like our intention for it is a mixed use, like where we have that area where we say we want it to be denser, but we want it to allow, stores. It might be that that's kind of more of a mixed use one. And we might want to take the mixed use one and just raise the height limit in mixed use one, because probably every place where there's mixed use one, we're like, you could build 4 stories there. Anyway, you can see why we need to talk about this. Yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
Just a clarifying procedural question. I think the conversations around those zoning possibilities were extremely fruitful, and I appreciated being able to walk the streets and think about a lot of the things we're talking about, and appreciate your further clarification this evening. As a planning commission, when we think about adjusting these pieces, do you and do folks generally think this should be a larger project in which we incorporate a number of adjustments of boundaries in this same way, and then do them all at once and propose a sort of packaged move of boundaries? Or do we want to do this piece by piece as we have time to look at a neighborhood more closely, nudge the lines, a month later do another one? Or do we not, or do we just want to be gathering information now that we can put into effect once we receive news about the grant?
Well, I think that our plan was to identify some place where we could make some short-term changes to hopefully, be able to give some developers the opportunity to make investments that they want to in the short term. And so the idea here would be, say, we picked these neighborhoods because we thought that they were a good idea. And then if we have changes that we want to make, we should just go ahead and, get those reviewed. And I would hope that if we could get the funding for, from this grant, then we would have the ability to look at the overall, our overall system and see, well, what needs to be changed every place. But yeah, I worry a little bit about making changes everywhere in an interim way, because the system, like all the parts are supposed to work together. And I worry that we don't have like I was saying before about unintended consequences, based on what we know. But anyway, that's just what I think. I think that was where we were starting from, but it doesn't mean it's right. And it doesn't mean we can't, like, if we recognize, hey, these changes are great and people are responding to them very well, then why wouldn't we look at someplace else and see if, like, is there someplace else that has, similar characteristics where we could, get the same benefits? But I wouldn't want to say right now that that's what I think we should do. Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yep, I agree with you, Michael. I think there's some low-hanging fruit we should address, because a planning study, we're going to file an application. It's going to take a while to be approved. We're probably talking a year or two before any of these changes happen. We have challenges going on right now that might we can take some small steps, and these seem like ones that aren't going to create any long-term challenges or issues, but might enable some more immediate things to happen.
Yeah, that definitely seems good. I think I'm definitely in favor of smaller, more conservative steps as a starting point. And as you say, David, once we have more information, we can look at bigger changes.
No, you can't see my hand up.
Oh, no, I could not see it. Go
Um,
ahead. Yeah.
But what we can do is if we get a few,
I'll lean there.
that's okay. If the only thing we're changing ultimately in the short term is we can present map changes. Because if we're not changing anything, the use tables or definitions or anything in the development ordinance itself, and we're just moving lines, I would recommend doing a bunch of little ones at once, coming back in front of the council for 2 hearings for this map change and this map change, and this map change might become laborious for you folks who are presenting every single time. Just food for thought.
Hang on for just a second, folks. Apparently I have to unlock my door. I will be right back. I'm sorry about that.
Is this man in charge now? We'll wait for Michael and we'll go rogue.
I was gonna say, we could take the opportunity to talk about him, but we're being recorded. So.
Ha! That was perfect timing, Michael.
I have returned. My apologies. Please go ahead.
Janet will be right back. She's grabbing something from her office very quickly. I wonder if I might put forward a proposal for the October and November meetings, which is to do what to do a little bit of what we did in the last meeting, where we identify other locations. And then if we can do 2 more sections, then in December, we can draw the lines, ratify those and pass those on to council. And that might be a nice, some small adjustments, but a nice chunk to move forward.
Yeah, I think I'm open to that. It also gives us the opportunity to do outreach to, say like, hey, is there someplace where, people are aware that a change should be made? I think, outreach and communication is one of those areas where we typically, I'm not sure, having an effective strategy for that is someplace where we sometimes fall a little bit short. So I guess the question would then be, if we were gonna communicate to say, hey, can you give us some, dear residents, developers, business owners, can you give us some, sorry, my brain just stopped halfway through the sentence. Yeah, I mean, can you give us some hints about where we should give our attention? The question that would be, what's the best way to get that, you get that question posed? Yeah, David, go ahead.
Yeah, one opportunity to do that is to visit with the Housing Task Force. Just another way to get things out there. I wouldn't suggest that be the only avenue, but it is a group that's concerned with housing in the city and gets in front of a bunch of people, and it also might be helpful if the Housing Task Force should choose to support the zoning changes. That might help as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. When is the next task force meeting?
It's the second Monday of each month. So let me see, so I think, yeah, the next one is actually on October 10th.
Well, it'll be just before our planning commission meeting.
Yeah.
So that's, great. Well, I will go to that. Amanda, go ahead.
Hearing that date makes me wonder if any suggestions from the housing task force might be best incorporated into our November target meeting. And I wonder if the October target meeting, I know Janet has said that she's got a couple of people interested in a couple of areas that they haven't fit the density or the current classification, current zoning for those areas. So I wonder if there are some existing things that we know about already through inquiries or through other discussions that we can put on the table for October and then push for outreach for November. I think the housing task force is a great possibility. I think, honestly, just a front porch forum. So saying, hey, we're looking at ways to, to improve housing opportunity here in Barrie. Have you considered like changing your house but have run up against zoning regulations? Have you considered building but have run up against zoning regulations? Please get in touch with us. We're looking for specific example areas, and just tossing that out there. One or two posts on Front Porch Forum might garner some ideas in addition to the housing task force for the November meeting.
Are you suggesting that you might be willing to do that?
Apparently I am.
If you want to
Awesome.
write it up, and I can post it, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'll write it up.
All right. Thank you.
For the minutes that I'm writing some posts up, and I'm going to pass it to Janet so that it can go through the official city posting and maybe go to her. Suggestions can go to her. That sounds good.
Yeah, that sounds great. And you said that that Janet had a list of locations that had come up also already.
I recall a couple of instances where she's mentioned things, and I know that some of those do not fall in the places we've already looked at. So I believe there is the possibility of putting together a list. You can't see her, but she's nodding next to me. So.
All right. Yeah, I definitely think getting those queued up for October is a good idea. Rosemary?
Hi. Yeah, I think we should definitely get a read from Janet on the requests she's getting from people over the last few months. It seems as though every time we get together, somebody's posed a challenge, and so that's great. I think I may say so. I think we put way too much relying on Front Porch Forum. I'm not opposed to posting anything there, but it seems as though we should broaden that to another media approach, whether it's the Times or whatever. But I think that would be wise to add another one to our list.
Go ahead, Janet.
As I'm helping Roxanne learn how we post, I've been doing the postings to Facebook. So Facebook is 100% a possibility, and all I have to do is copy and paste there as well. So we can do Facebook because that is right now under COVID restrictions. That is our official electronic posting place. So Facebook and Front Porch Forum are certainly a good idea, and I can change the website. I could change morph the planning commission page to reflect what it is that we're working on now and try to keep that live. If you guys think that's a really good idea. Meetings like we did, so those of you who were here when we worked on the zoning changes back in 2019 and 2020, I kept that page active and alive, what we were doing every single meeting. I can do this to garner more attention as well.
Yeah, I think the website and Facebook are both good things to add. You leverage the request that Amanda is putting together in those places. Amanda, go ahead.
Just to follow up on what Rosemary said, I think it might be worth reaching out to the Times Argus and just letting them know what we're working on. And they may bite on an article. I'm happy to reach out to Dave Delcor and see if that might pique his interest. I mean, if you might not care at all, but it's worth a try.
Oh yeah, no, I think that that's a great idea.
On my list for this weekend.
Is there somewhere a list of developers or people who own property in the city who might be interested in developing further that we could reach out to? Because it sounds like those are really the people we're wanting to hear from. Less, I mean, not to say that we don't want to hear from the general public or from individual homeowners, but really we're interested in people who are going to invest in building new in our community. And so I'm just thinking about how else we can reach those people specifically. And I don't know where they hang out or what they read, so.
Yeah, David.
Another opportunity for outreach, and I think this could come through Janet or through me, is to the Barry Area Development Corporation. Certainly enough people on that board and involved who are involved in property development or construction. I think, Janet, you meet with them, with some regularity, so it might be best if it can come through you, but it can come through me as well. Or both of us, maybe even better.
So I don't meet regularly with the interim director. When he zips through my office, that's how we meet. And prior to that, Cody and the manager and I did have a standing meeting. I'm hoping once there is a director announced that we get back onto that schedule for sure, David.
Yeah, there is a new director, but it hasn't been announced yet.
Well, I think the plan of getting community input to find some other locations to do this same process on is a really good plan. Especially if the stuff that we did so far seems like it lines up with our objectives. We've got a pattern at least for what to do next time. And then as Janet suggested, we turn these into actual map changes. Right now they're distinctly notional. Very, very fuzzy. But I think that in terms of our intention to do outreach, these venues that we have in mind for outreach, it sounds like we have next steps to put into the pipeline for doing another round of looking at changes. So is there any other input that people wanted to give on what we did so far? Like any suggestions or changes that might be necessary? Oh, your hand is up. Sorry. Yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
I know it's like in line with that post. So sometimes anyway, only the packet that you and Janet prepared for the last neighborhood walk meeting was extremely useful. I know you hedged it by saying it was all approximate, but it was still helpful to be able to look at the differences across various possibilities and look at specific, like very, very specific spots in that same way. So I would appreciate if that's something we could be provided at future meetings when we do the neighborhood visits.
We definitely can, and I think it will help to get specific like properties to say, hey, what would this one look like? So when we have a list of areas to think about, I think that if we could look in those areas and say, like, I'm curious about what's possible with this, then we can look at the data for that and put it into our spreadsheet and see what shakes out. So the more detail that we're able to get to in terms of like what we want to do that comparison on, like the more likely we'll be able to have it ready. But of course, also it is a spreadsheet, so we can just plop stuff into it on the fly. All right, well, I think that we have no action that is needed unless there's correction that is needed. So we could move on in our agenda if everyone is amenable. All right. Next up is reviewing our grant application for bylaw modernization. And I know that we're in early stages of putting it together, but I think it's still really great to see see how what the form of the application is and what what we put into it already.
So as you
Hi.
can
Go ahead, yeah.
only filled out the basic. I had a time to even really delve into each of the items we have to have a narrative for. And as Michael suggested to you folks earlier, that if, you know, feedback is lovely, it's wonderful, and I'm looking forward to it. So the obviously one of the last few pages of the part of the application itself is the resolution that needs to be approved by the city council. And that's partnered by their saying, yes, go forth and apply. So we can get the resolution taken care of sooner rather than later. So you let me know if that's something you want to get on the council agenda soon, so we just get that administrative minutia taken care of. I'm all for it.
That sounds wise. I mean, I don't know procedurally how that works, but you know, if it's pro forma, then I say let's go ahead and get council sign off.
Okay.
Does there need to be a motion?
I don't. Janet, does there need to be a motion? We can certainly have one.
Well, I don't think so, because the resolution is required of the grant application. So
Mhm.
I don't believe you need to make a motion. You can if you'd like to,
No,
but I don't think it's necessary.
I just didn't know if official asks of council by the planning commission need to be official motions.
well, I think this one's coming from Janet. So David, you've got your hand up. I'm going to let you go ahead.
Yeah, my question is, before going to city council, perhaps a grant application ought to have like a project title or a little bit of, not the complete application, but just, you know, specificity that the grant application is going to involve reviewing and modernizing the zoning with particular emphasis on creating housing opportunities or something like that.
So to go in front of city council to get their blessing, we hope to pocket that in under the consent agenda. And we actually have a form staff has to fill out as to why it's there. If you look at any of the packets, you'll see there's always this form that tees up an idea. And so that will all be filled out with exactly what you said. They don't necessarily see the grant application itself unless you want them to.
No, that's perfect. I just think going, you know, saying there's going to be a grant application, there should be a little more specificity about what it's going to be.
Oh, absolutely.
And it sounds like you're on that.
And I will let you know when that goes in front of city council. If Nicholas and I can get under consent agenda, that's great. That doesn't necessarily mean anybody needs to attend, but anything that gets put under consent agenda is fair game to be pulled out and then added to the regular agenda. So it never hurts to have somebody present, at least for that first 5 minutes, if nothing comes up about it. So I will let you know when that's there.
Yeah, I can be on the hook for being in attendance when you get that on the agenda.
Perfect, thank you.
And when is the application due?
November 1.
Is it December 1st?
November 1st.
Oh, it's November. Yeah, I thought it was December, but yeah,
Okay.
6 p.m.
it does say that November 1st. Yep. Yeah, I knew there was a reason we wanted to look at it. Oh, go ahead.
No, we're just chatting in turn, sorry.
Yeah, and that was why we wanted to get something to look at now. And so I think what that implies is that we want to get it to a pretty finished state by the time we look at it next meeting. Just so that, we have a sense of what's in it. But the reason we're looking at it today is not just to see exactly, like what's done, but to see what the form is, so that all of us, like Janet said, have the opportunity to say, I know what should go in this slot, and we can send that to Janet. Well, do we have any thoughts about what we should say about the current grant? I think that Amanda's hand is up. Yes, correct. Go ahead. Yeah. I can tell whose hand it was from the angle. So sorry. Go ahead.
I have black sleeves. Does that help?
Yeah.
Anyway, I had two general comments. One is under the public outreach section. Plans approach outreach to partner organizations and the broader public. Is that something that perhaps a member of the planning commission should coordinate, and just, does this require some kind of like, hey, we are talking to the Barry Area Development Corporation, and just calling someone up and saying, hey, we're gonna say we're talking to you in this grant? I know when I've done grants in other capacities, like even if you just say we're talking to these people, we should probably give them a heads up. So if someone wants to, at the housing task force, if someone wants to brainstorm a list of potential partner organizations, call them up and say, hey, we're applying for a grant for housing and we're listing you as possible partners for outreach for this. You don't have to do anything right now. I think that could be a very useful thing.
I agree.
And the other thing I was going to say is that I'm happy to take a whack at the community needs section, which seems to rely largely on things that are sort of already defined in various other places like the plan. And I know that the prospectus we wrote for the city manager task force might have some useful pieces in here too. So I'm happy to take a whack at that if that sounds amenable to people.
I'm gonna David, go ahead. And
I was just going to say the outreach, if we're making outreach about zoning changes, why not use that as the opportunity to also tell whatever groups or whatever outreach that we're getting ready to submit a grant, and would love your input and love your involvement in the process once it gets going. And it's kind of like we're already there, so we might as well mention it.
Amanda, does that fit in with what your intention is for the? Okay.
I don't really care. I just think that someone should talk to folks and say, hey, we'd like to put your name as a potential partner in this grant. I think having it at the same time as we say we'd also like to hear about areas for zoning that need to be updated is a great idea, and you don't have to keep going back. So.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. David, you are connected to Housing Task Force and BADC. Do you think you could?
Yeah. It's on my mental list here.
All right.
As they, they both meet they'll both be meeting in October, so it just gets it out there. And then, in terms of putting things on the grant application, we will have already made the outreach and started a dialogue even before the application gets in, and that might even be, part of the application, is that outreach is already underway.
I think that makes sense. Were there other organizations or groups that were on our on the list of things that we should have in mind?
There we go.
Go ahead, Amanda. Yeah.
Okay. I would suggest adding the homelessness task force to the list of potential partner organizations, as well as Good Samaritan Haven, who I know we've had some discussions about the way the zoning works for their shelter in Barry that doesn't work for them. And another potential partner, I'm not 100% sure this is the right one, but another potential partner would be Capstone. We can always put them as potential partners and, see how it shakes out.
Yeah, and do we have people who have relationships with these groups to reach out to, or are we just say hi and kind of wing it? Go ahead, Janet.
I do. I actually have been working a lot with David Fowler, who's one of their directors. So I can reach out to David and start that dialogue among everything else he and I are talking about already. Because they know a lot of what's going on the ground, right? People and placements and what's going on with food insecurity and housing and all that. So I think Capstone's a great suggestion to that list.
I have connections to Good Samaritan and to the homelessness task force that I can leverage.
All right.
Actually, you know what? Joe has a great connection to the homelessness task force.
Yeah, I was actually, I was just waiting to, so my wife Erica is on that board as well, so I can bring that up and as a starting point.
Then
too.
I will just do Good Samaritan.
Well, thank you everyone for doing this outreach.
Do you think asking Tracy at the partnership to put anything in her newsletter, or shall we just leave her to merchants and growth and all that stuff? I mean, their mission is primarily commercial in the downtown. So, you know, as I say it, I don't think it's a great idea, but that's just my thought process. I'm thinking about everybody who's out there, so.
Doesn't do any harm.
Sure.
I mean, there's a difference between consulting and putting it out and saying you're a project partner that actually has responsibilities or things. You know, if we want it out in the community, it just, there's no reason, there's no downside to it as far as I see. They might have no interest, but we would have consulted with them.
Okay. Take that on. Thank you.
I'm curious how we know what to put in for things like local match
So
for
if you,
funding.
I have a line item in my own budget for match. I carry a $10,000 line item for match. So we are all set on match.
Marvelous. Well, can anyone else think of something we'd like to add for our current consideration of our grant application?
I just want to note that that resolution requires that the planning commission, after city council adopts it, that we vote to approve it and sign off on it. And so that sequencing, if we're going to only meet on October 13th, has to happen so that we get that in time.
Good catch.
We can always have an emergency meeting, but yeah, it would be better to be orderly.
Does the application have to be complete before we do that, or is that just sort of saying that we are planning to submit it when it is ready?
The latter of the two.
Okay,
We can ask them to apply all day long. And they can say yes, and if we don't, we don't, but they just need to know that that's what we're thinking about and to give us their blessing.
okay. So there shouldn't be any concern with just having that be part of our next agenda then, I wouldn't think.
So long as it goes to council first, I think, is
Right.
what Becky said.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, right,
Right.
of course, yeah.
And it's too late for next week. So we've only got 2 meetings.
I can't help with drafting, but I'm happy to help be like reviewer or polisher if there's different people putting in bits and pieces of the proposal. I'm happy to do that part.
Great, thank you.
Well, I'm excited at how much everyone is, putting shoulders to grindstones or however it goes in this, shoulder to wheels, that's how it goes, right? Yeah. So yeah, thanks everybody. Anything else on our application? So just, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Amanda.
Final procedural question.
ahead.
Do we need to vote to submit a final grant, or do we simply sort of at our next meeting say, yep, we've got all the pieces, we vote to send in whatever, Janet, whatever gets polished up by the end of this month?
I think Janet can answer that one, but I think Janet did already, right? Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think we need to vote on it, but you can if you'd like to, that it reflects in the record that you're moving forward with this. It's going to be widely supported for sure. So, but I'll leave that to you to decide. I think there's enough in the former meeting minutes that we've been talking about applying regardless. So I think you're covered.
Right, because I mean, I think it basically comes down to, you have the administrative authority to, to apply for grants, right? Yeah, once they have been city council. I mean, is it a specific requirement for this grant that it needs to be approved by council?
The
Or-
resolution be
Yeah,
approved.
right.
And our grant policy requires that the city council and or the city manager approve the ability to
Mhm.
apply. So deference has been given to city council historically, so
Got it.
hence the resolution and tying it to just making sure that they're saying yes to allowing us to apply. Will be done in one fell swoop.
Go ahead, David.
Michael has to sign the grant application as well.
That is true. I saw that, yeah.
So that's part of the process as the planning commission is on board. That's, both planning commission and the city council. And there has to be signatures from all of those different bodies to show that it's a legitimate application.
Well, seems like we're moving along. Thanks everyone for for the input, and have a look at the application, and certainly Janet will be the person to receive stuff that we think is the things that any individuals think are appropriate to go in before we have something to review at our next meeting. All right. In that case, I think we can move on past that very last new business item. Our next meeting, clicked away from my agenda, sorry, scheduled for October 13th. I know David said that he won't be able to make that one. Hopefully, many others of us will. Grand. Well, I see that, well, I don't know, maybe we had no public before for our public comment, but I see that we have one member of the public present, but anyway, we can move on to staff updates. We did not have updates. Are they in the? I didn't see them at the bottom, but maybe I didn't look closely enough.
Were there staff updates?
Yes.
Yeah, I was mumbling about the whether they were in the in the thing or not. They're there, but I didn't actually read that part of the agenda or the packet rather. Is there anything we should draw special attention to, Janet, or anything to add?
Yeah, if anyone hasn't read my staff update, just note that I've been literally by myself all week and part of next week. So I'm just jumping around from one little thing to another. But I would draw your attention to The fourth bullet, the DRB, first, Michael's on DRB, so he knows about this, but if you recall, I briefed you a couple months ago that St. Monica's went in front of the DRB to request demolition of the little house that they own on West Street. The DRB denied it, and the DRB, so the church has appealed that decision to the environmental court. So we'll see what happens, and I can't say this on record. When speaking with Oliver, he said, be forewarned that more than likely they'll win in environmental court because they're a church. So we'll see what happens, but I just wanted you folks to know that they contacted Valson Giacomo de Torre McQuestion and are going through the appropriate channels to appeal the decision. So now it just kind of drags on through the court system and with the city attorney. And as soon as I hear something, I can let you know how that process is going. But that could be a few months, literally. So just wanted you all to know that. Since you're the policy writers and the DRB are the folks that carry it out. It's a partnership, right? So. That's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions?
I-
Oh,
Can I
yeah, go
just
ahead,
ask
Becky.
Blake for the 30-second sketch of why that request was denied? Or should I go,
No, that's okay. The Development Review Board felt it didn't meet all the definitions required. They needed to, there's a section in the zoning is like a test. And you have to be able to say that you, A, B, C, and D, they answered all those questions. And the board largely felt that they did not answer the questions well enough. So it was denied. So,
thank you, that's helpful.
very well.
Yeah, and I'd also note that in the public section of the Development Review Board meeting, I asked questions that were specifically about the criteria that they needed to meet, and they answered very clearly that they did not meet the criteria. So it's not it's not really that subjective. Go ahead, Rosemary.
Janet, can you give just a little bit more information about this housing ordinance that the mayor and Sam Stockwell are working on or wanting to revise?
Sure, we've been meeting a couple times. We're not in front of the city council yet. But chapter 7 is the minimum housing ordinance for the city that applies to all rental stock in the city. And while I assist code enforcement, this will largely be a code enforcement discussion on what they're seeing, how many inspections they're doing, what they're missing, what they're not missing. I'm involved obviously because I need them to do my inspections. And my office, it's a partnership, we assist each other. So both Councilor Stockwell and Mayor Hemrick have asked code enforcement to come in front of city council to start that discussion to see how things are going and where things are at, and you know what's the feeling out on the street, what's going on post-COVID. So that's coming forward.
Great, thank you for expanding on that. Thanks.
Yep, you're welcome.
Are there any other questions about staff updates? Not seeing any, we could move on to roundtable. Is there anything that any of our members would like to bring to the discussion? Me neither. Well, sorry, my brain, I don't even know. All right. I think that not having anything, I could hear a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion to adjourn. A second.
Second.
Was that Joe seconding? All right.
Yes.
yeah. Okay, great. I will call the roll. Rosemary,
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Amanda,
I,
Becky,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
and Raylene.
Aye.
All right, thank you, everyone. We are adjourned early this evening. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
see you
Have
all
a
in
good
October.
week.
Night.
Janet, can I ask,